Let's maybe draw it some different color. So we have a liquid film here. This is I mean, incompressible. In fact, for all practical purpose, you can take it as density equal to constant. So let us be more specific rather than general incompressible. Let us say it is density, constant density. The gap between the plate and the fixed wall, this is bottom wall is fixed, is initially something, but this gap is changing continuously. Why this gap is changing continuously is because this plate is coming down with a velocity v0, which is constant. So because of this, there is a squeezing effect, and h is also a function of time. At time equal to 0, sorry, at time equal to 0, h was equal to h0. This much is known, and we set up a coordinate axis. Let us draw this. This is x, and maybe centrally we take z, and this is the radius. So the plate is a circular plate, so we can write it's a circular plate. And it is told that whatever may be the velocity within the gap, but the velocity is not a function of z. This is given, not that. So velocity is not a function of z. So with this, the problem is find out the pressure difference between, say, let us mark maybe two sections. This is 1 and this is 2. So find out the pressure difference between the sections 1 and 2. So this is the question. Okay. So let us try to answer this question. And to answer this question, we have to keep in mind that the first and foremost requirement of giving a physically meaningful solution is that whatever may be your calculation, it should satisfy the conservation of mass. So conservation of mass, in fact, we discussed about one similar problem in our kinematics chapter. So by conservation of mass being applied here, what we understand is that when the plate is coming down, it is sweeping some flow along with that. What is that sweeping flow? That sweeping flow is the velocity V naught times the area. So now instead of the full area of the plate, if we consider, for example, say a control volume like this, which represents a local radius small r. Small r is a local radius, capital R is the total radius of the this one plate. So small r is like x, but because it is a cylindrical system, so instead of x, it is better to describe it as r. So in fact, we will replace this x with r because it's not a rectangular system, but it is a cylindrical system. So we just write it r as this. Conceptually doesn't matter, but in terms of coordinate system based implementation, it matters. So when this plate is sweeping, what is that fluid that is entering into this control volume from the top? It is simply V naught into pi r square. Velocity into the area. This velocity is uniform because the plate is coming down with constant velocity. Now, what this fluid is doing to satisfy the conservation of mass, and it's a constant density, so no question of any mass accumulation inside. So what it will do is it will just get radially sort of spilled out or squeezed out. So what is that radial velocity? If the radial velocity is v and at a given r, and see v is not a function of z. That means the velocity varies only along the radial direction. So at a given radial section, so section 1 or section 2, whatever, the velocity is a function of that radial location only. So at a given radial location, which is the periphery of this control volume, you have the velocity v into this 2 pi r into h. So this is the periphery area over which the fluid is coming out, and because v is not a function of z, so it is just like a uniform velocity over the cross section. So from here it follows that v is v naught r by 2h. So it is a function of what? It is a function of r, and it is also a function of time because h is a function of time. Now our objective is to calculate the pressure difference between the sections 1 and 2, and to do that, what we understand is that we are not considering any variation along z. So in a way, what we are assuming in terms of, say, the nature of the streamlines is that the streamlines are all straight and parallel. The yellow colored ones that I have just drawn, simply because there is no variation along the z direction. So the sections 1 and 2 will boil down to any point 1 and 2 which you can take on the streamline. So you can take point 1 and you can say take some point somewhere point 2. On the same streamline. But the result will not change if you take another streamline. They are all parallel and representing the same thing. So now we will try to apply the Bernoulli's equation, but we have to keep in mind that it is an unsteady fluid. because velocity is a function of time. So we cannot, in principle, use the unsteady version, steady version of the Bernoulli's equation. In fact, we will try to use the unsteady version and see what is the consequence. So to do that, we will let us write this unsteady Bernoulli's equation. The points 1 and 2 have to be very clear, and in fact, if you are answering any question in the exam, make sure that you clearly mark those points across which you are applying the equation. And better to do it in a sketch so that you don't have to write too much, but from the sketch it is understood that what it is. So dp by rho, this integral 1 to 2 plus d of v square by 2 remember, we are using it along a streamline, so streamline version of the equation we are using. Now, very casually, I have written the Bernoulli's equation, but I have not actually checked whether this equation is going to be valid under the conditions which are described in the problem. Can any one of you tell that whether there is any concern against applying this for the problem described here? Any one of you?
No problem, sir. Because it is along the streamlines.
Is anywhere in the problem it is told that it is inviscid flow?
No, sir.
So if you recall that one of the sort of major ones, I would say the prime considerations, in fact, all throughout this chapter, whatever we are doing, is that it is inviscid flow. Right. Now, this situation can particularly pertain to a problem where you can have, in fact, a very highly viscous oil squeezed between two solid boundaries. In fact, it is a very common engineering problem that you have a thin layer of oil separating two ones. Okay, so in that way, what we see here is a situation where we are not actually told to about anything about any viscous effect. So when we are not told anything about the viscous effect, what we can do about it here? That is the question. So I have written very casually the Bernoulli's equation, and in fact, I mean, I wrote it casually with the same spirit that most of anybody who is answering any question where there is a temptation of using Bernoulli's equation, it is used just like that, because the objective is to solve the problem, and this will enable solving the problem, no doubt about it, because it will give a pressure difference. Now, can you tell whether this is sort of justified or not? I just give you 1 minute to think about it, And
Sir?
then yes, yes, tell.
So yeah, I think it is justified because v is not a function of vz, so there is no velocity gradient and all, so viscosity cannot have any effect.
Yeah. So no, perfect answer. So see, although it is not directly told that the velocity, sorry, the viscosity, what it is, or is viscous effect important or not, inviscid, etc. But the clue is given by this. V is not a function of z. So what it means? So I will show you, I mean, two examples. This is an example where V is a function of z. And this is an example where V is not a function of z. So the difference is that in the case of V as a function of z, you have a velocity gradient. And that velocity gradient, or the rate of deformation, it gives rise to a viscous stress due to shear. At least from your early understanding of the subject, you know that to have a shear stress, it is not just sufficient to have a viscosity, but also very important to have a velocity gradient or the rate of deformation. So the fluid will of course have a viscosity and non-zero viscosity, no doubt about it. But because of the absence of velocity gradient here, there will be no viscous stress. So this will imply that it is like inviscid. So this, see, this is where, this is, almost like a sort of interpreting a detective story, that, by reading into what is being told, you can gain some more insights which are not directly told. So these are all, funs of problem solving. Problem solving is not about, just putting values here and getting an answer. I mean, I can remember, I mean, in my early days of very, there was a noise somewhere. I mean, can you all hear me?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
So, okay, it's fine. So, I mean, in my very early days of teaching at IIT Kharagpur, I mean, possibly, it was my first or second year of teaching. I mean, I faced many experiences actually, which gave me, good sort of, insight as, what is, what happens in many classes, so that, students are not able to learn in the way in which we all expect as teachers. Uh, so I mean, one or two incidents I can just just as a sort of passing thing, not exactly related to this. The first day in which I went to teach an undergraduate fluid mechanics class, possibly in the year of maybe 2003 or 4, I cannot remember exactly. So I was sort of a very young faculty member at that time, and possibly one of the youngest in the history of the system to be there. So very difficult. It was very difficult for even anybody to distinguish me from the look of any student. So, but anyway, after joining the class, I mean, I found that just people they were settling down, and uh, perhaps at the very beginning could not identify whether teacher is there or not. Then I declared that yes, I am the teacher, and then I asked them one question, that I give two options to you. I mean, I can teach you the subject with PowerPoint slides, and I can also teach you the subject with this traditional board work. All of you are very new generation students. I mean, in those days they were new generation students. Now you people are new generation. So generation is dynamic. So I said that you are all new generation students. So you tell me what you prefer, and I will do accordingly. So I took sort of their opinion, and one of them said, and clearly stood up and said that I want to tell something which I think you will allow me to tell. I said, yes, I mean, it's what's wrong. I mean, if it is related to what we are studying in the class, I mean, you are free to talk about that. You are not, of course, free to talk about anything arbitrary, but related to whatever we are doing, sure. So he said that please do not cheat us by flashing PowerPoint slides one after the other, which may be very difficult to follow. So I got a lesson in my teaching life that sometimes as teachers, I mean, we often forget that who are the people to whom we are disseminating the knowledge, and mostly the people who are listening to us are not familiar with the subject, and that is why they are in the class. If they are familiar, they will be not. So there is no blame on them that they are not familiar, but the flashy type of presentation, it may be so good in a seminar or maybe a brief research talk, but perhaps it can kill the entire learning spirit in that way. So with that lesson, I sort of never in fact dared to teach such a fundamental subject. I mean, I have been teaching 3 types of fundamental subjects in the department over the years: fluid mechanics, thermodynamics, and heat transfer. And I have actually hardly followed that way. So anyway, the students were quite pleased that I went back to old tradition of teaching. And in fact, even after the pandemic has hit, and there is a temptation of using the PowerPoint slides, and I have in fact all the slides of whatever the topics that may be needed to teach in this course, but I refrain from doing that. And this writing pad, though it gives a lot of pain sometimes for connectivity, etc., I try to at least sort of simulate the classroom environment, which we all used to enjoy in the pre-pandemic era. But what I'm talking about is a little bit different thing, but again related to the same class of students. So after starting teaching to their class, we mutually became very friendly. The students in the class were quite friendly to me, and I was also quite friendly. In terms of friendly means what? Friendly doesn't mean that I would give them free marks or whatever, but friendly, what it means is that we were very open in terms of sharing our thoughts. So one of those students, this fluid mechanics class was divided into 2 sections. So one of those students, was one day, approaching me to my office in the department, and his friend came with him. So his friend was in a different section of the same fluid mechanics class. It was being taught by another teacher whom you all know, but I'm not telling his name. So he said that, sir, I want to discuss something, and he opened a problem which was discussed in the class, not this problem, but somewhat something similar, where there was an unsteady term. Then the problem was solved. It was a problem from the book of Fox and McDonald. The problem was solved with this unsteady term equal to 0, and it got the right answer. So the student said that I asked sir in the class that what happens? I mean, why this unsteady term is suddenly taken to 0? I mean, it may be steady or unsteady, but we do not know. So suddenly, why unsteady term is 0? So what answer the professor gave is this one, that well, it could be steady or unsteady, but you think a lot, and then you lose your time and get a big 0 in exam. So this is what is our Indian education system. This is what JEE, GATE, etc. has taught us, that think more and you will lose time. Therefore, do not think, take brain out of your activity and do an act which you think will give you the answer in the shortest path. Maybe by eliminating wrong answers from multiple choice or whatever. But that is not what is the spirit of education. So here, this is the question that should come to everybody's mind before, not only here, at any point of time whenever we are using the Bernoulli's equation. The question should come to the mind first, that is the implicit flow consideration legitimately justified here? See, the best way of learning is by setting questions to yourselves, not accepting blindly what is being put up. So this is a glaring example where with this, see, this is not a difficult question to answer, but if you do not put up this question to yourself, you will never realize that this is something which is like not that obvious. Now let us try to solve the problem. All the terms are more or less straightforward except this one. So we will, and this is also straightforward, but we have to do partial derivative. So partial derivative of v with respect to time, see v0 r by 2. Now h is a function of time, so it becomes 1 by h derivative minus 1 by h square, and h is a function of time, so dh into dh dt. And what is dh dt? Dh dt is nothing but equal to minus v0. The reason is as the plate is coming down, h is decreasing, so dh dt is negative. So in that way, let us integrate this. Density is a constant, we already assumed. So this will be P2 minus P1. So we are just integrating this one, plus V2 square minus V1 square by 2. Okay. Plus G into Z2 minus Z1, which for this problem is not important. They are like the same horizontal level. So this is 0. Plus this will be V0 square R by 2 H square into ds from 1 to 2. This is 0. Okay. So let me erase maybe some part of the board which gives me a space to write. So P2 minus P1 by rho plus V2 square minus V1 square by 2 plus now while doing this integration, we can put ds is equal to dr, because if you see the streamlines are all parallel and along r direction. So any differential change in S is as good as differential change in R. So now this is now a straightforward integration. So V0 square R dr by 2h square. This is equal to 0. So P2 minus P1 by rho plus V2 square minus V1 square by 2 plus V0 square by 2H square into R2 square minus R1 square. This is equal to 0. Okay. And remember that H is a function of time. So H, I mean, you can just integrate dH dt equal to minus V naught, and that will make this H is the initial H, this is the initial H, minus V0 into T. Okay. So the pressure differential, that is P2 minus P1, is obtained from this equation. Just you can take all the other terms in the other side and you will get it. So V1 will be this V1 and V2, you know, V as a function of R. So this you also write in terms of R. That means V2 square, this will be what? V0 square R into, sorry, V equal to what? V0 square, sorry, V0 R by 2H, right? So V0 square R2 square by 4 H square. And similarly, this is V0 square R1 square by 4 H square. So in that way, you can get the pressure difference in terms of the difference in the radial coordinate. We will solve another problem by using unsteady Bernoulli's equation. And again, the problem that I am going to solve is something which many of you have solved in high school level. I mean, may not be for your board exams, but at least for preparing for maybe one of the JEE exams. So the problem is like this. So you have a tank, reasonably large water tank, and you have a small orifice or a hole just on cut at the bottom on the axis of the tank, and the tank has a radius r, and the fluid which is coming out, or the water which is coming out, imagine it's a water tank. So it is coming out across this, this is the orifice with diameter d. It is coming out with some velocity which you do not know. So there are many things which are not known. Of course, it is known that this is the vertical direction upwards, which say let us call as z, and why we are calling it as z is because that is the coordinate that we use for the vertical in the Bernoulli's equation. And let me show the free surface of the water. So I mean, those of you who are not very familiar with the engineering representation of free surface, because many of you are not from engineering. So normally, see, and how do we know that this is a free fluid surface and not something else? So this line, this triangle marked with these two horizontals, they are given just to represent that this is a free liquid surface, maybe water in this case. So we consider it water with density constant. So let us at least simplify that part. The diameter of this is, so the diameter of the tank is, say, sorry, I have written the reverse. So this is R equal to D by 2. Capital D is the diameter of the tank. So this is much less than capital D. This is what it is told. So the one very common question that is asked out of this is what is the time taken to make the tank empty? Given that if this is the height, this is less like the previous problem, where the height from the base of the this liquid will be a function of time. So at time equal to 0, you have H equal to H. Then H will decrease with time because water will drain, and the question is how much time it will require for the water to drain. Okay. So this is a question that you have been solving from a stage where you have not learned so many types of intricate relatively convoluted conceptual things that we have been talking about. So can any one of you from your sort of JEE or say second year fluid mechanics level of experience tell that, forgetting about all more complex things, how would you solve that problem given this problem is asked at that level? Any one of you? I mean, some younger ones will be better because they will remember the junior level class more. So any one of you, maybe one of the BTech students can tell. So no BTech student in the class?
Hello, sir.
Yes, tell.
Sir, I think here we have to make
No, do not tell what we have to. Just tell that had this problem been given in a say a joint entrance type of exam or second year fluid mechanics at the most, how would you solve it? You cannot say unsteady Bernoulli's equation because that was not there at that time. So this is this one that that trick that professor had told to the student, that you think more and you will lose your marks. So if you think less, how do you solve this problem? Any one of you? Because I want to show the actual contrast from that. So we have to know contrast from what. So what is that method? Any one of you? I am sure this problem all of you have solved.
So rate of change of volume equal to that velocity into that area, and that velocity could be found out from the Bernoulli's equation applied.
So I mean, okay, let me put up what you are saying in terms of mathematical symbols. So first thing you tell, so rate of change of volume. Okay, so rate of change of volume is what? Pi r square into h. So d dt of this, that is what you are saying, right?
Yes, yes.
So what is equal to this?
Equal to v into v. I mean that velocity from that small hole.
Okay, so this is v into pi d square by 4.
Yeah, yes.
Unit is matching? Yes, unit is matching. Plus or minus?
Sir, I mean both side minus or
No, not both side minus. Here it is, v is a magnitude, and h is just h will decrease with time. So dh dt will be minus. So to accommodate that, you have to use a minus sign here, right?
Yes, sir.
So then
And
next.
the velocity is to be found out from the Bernoulli's equation at the free surface and at the bottom surface.
So typically this is the velocity that, I mean, if I remember, in those times in my own junior classes, this was the expression of velocity that was used. I mean, do you agree with this, or you have learned something different?
Yes, sir. This was used.
This was used, right? So I mean, this is actually a very famous equation introduced in some different context by Torricelli. So this is known as Torricelli's equation, which is a sort of, you can get it from Bernoulli's equation only. So this is nothing but if you apply the Bernoulli's equation between the free surface and the what is draining out, you will get this one. So
actually,
yes.
there was another factor inside the velocity. I mean 1 minus d square by dt square, something like that. Small d square by d square, and that term we take it as 0 almost. As small d.
No, that is all right. I mean, all those things are there in this only. So this assumes that the velocity here is almost 0 at the free surface. That is why this is root 2 gh. Otherwise, it will be the difference in the squares of the velocity equal to 2 gh. So what is assumed is that this surface is so large that it is moving much slowly as compared to what the fluid is coming out, which is quite logical in that. It's not that it is very illogical. So instead of equal, this is approximate, and that you can substitute here, right? So this will give a separation of variables, h as a function of time. So you can find out the time at which h is equal to 0 by integrating, right? So all of you do agree that this is the way in which the problem, and perhaps you would have solved at that stage, right? Yes or no?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
So now we have become more pandits because we have understood that for unsteady flow and where the unsteadiness is very severe, we cannot use steady condition, which leads to this equation, right? Torricelli's equation. This comes from the steady Bernoulli's equation. The derivation is very simple, but it doesn't follow from the unsteady one. So now that we have become great pandits in the subject, we realize that this we cannot directly apply because it is not a steady flow. So that is the first contradiction. Can we use this even if it is unsteady flow? One of you give the answer. Yes? Yes or no? Any one of you? Give the answer.
Yes,
So what it is saying is that the water, which is sort of being pushed from the top, the same water is leaving through this hole, and this just follows from incompressibility. So it doesn't matter whether the flow is steady or unsteady. So this we can use without any problem. But steady Bernoulli's equation, I mean, this will ideally, of course, why ideally? Very clearly, it is not going to be the reality because it is not a steady flow. I mean, the free surface may be moving down slowly. The tank is draining slowly, but it is changing with time. So this is the first contradiction that we have marked, before solving the problem. The second aspect of contradiction is, of course, whether we can consider inviscid flow or not. So if you imagine the streamlines, just sketch the streamlines, how will the streamlines look in this flow? So if the water is draining like this, you will see the streamlines mostly. So this is too congested, so I cannot really draw, but this is what happened. The flow is being drawn towards the the small hole. So in that way, streamlines are mostly along the z-axis, but just before the exit of the water, the streamlines have to adjust to it, and therefore they have to take a bend or the curvature. Otherwise, it's more or less straight. So now, if the streamlines are straight and parallel, you will have a uniform velocity here, and this is so small, you can as well neglect the variation of velocity over the diameter as compared to, I mean, if you could not neglect and if you sort of could not neglect this or could neglect this also you can. There is a more authentic justification of this. So here you consider uniform velocity, right? And can you tell that if you just take 2 points 1 and 2 on some streamline and apply, say, Bernoulli's equation between the free surface and the exit of the streamline. So can you tell whether V2 is greater than V1 or less than V1? Right? It is quite obvious. I mean, for that you don't have to do any calculation. That V2 is greater than V1, and in fact it is much greater than V1. Simple reason is here the area at the top is much larger and here the area is much smaller. So to push the same rate of flow, you have to have very high velocity. So here, if it is uniform, uniformity is a hallmark of a sort of a turbulent type of flow. Then here it will be definitely uniform because the velocity is even more. So I mean, at least from your previous experiences, you know that as the flow becomes of higher and higher velocity, it will have a tendency of getting into turbulent flow. And here the velocity 1 itself, if the velocity profile is like turbulent flow, which is uniform because of uniform mixing. Velocity at 2 is simply, I mean, it has to be the same way because it is greater than 1. So again, doesn't matter whether all within the tank what viscous effect is important or not, but we are applying it between 2 points 1 and 2, where the sections involve uniform velocity profile and therefore no shear stress. And in that way, you can use the Bernoulli's equation. Of course, this is an approximation, but the approximation is physically not a very bad approximation. So it is unsteady, and we can use a Bernoulli's equation with certain restriction. I mean, constant density is one of the things which is already given as a part of the problem. So let us write the unsteady Bernoulli's equation. So just like the previous problem, I'm just writing between 1 and 2. 1 and 2 I have marked on the streamline. So the first integral, this is P2 minus P1 by rho. Rho is a constant. Second integral, V2 square minus V1 square. But I'm not neglecting V1 or V2 anything. I'm just writing it like that. Plus G into Z2 minus Z1. Now, what about the unsteady term? So here it is impossible to actually do the integral very fundamentally, because you actually do not know how this entire this velocity is varying and very close to this bend or abrupt change in cross section. The velocity is quite complex. So you have to somehow make a simplified assumption, and that is what is the theoretical work. The fun of theoretical work is that you know what is the reality and you must be having a clarity of what is the reality, but mathematical model is not exactly what is the reality. I mean, it is not possible. You have to make some judicious approximations to make it closely mimicking to reality by giving some practical considerations. So if you see now that for the most part of this, so the streamline, if you consider the journey of the fluid from 1 to 2, the most part of the streamline is actually there within the tank, and only a small part is, a part is there almost horizontal where it is not contributing to any flow along the direction of flow, and the part which is there outside the tank is only a small part because it's a very short orifice by which the water is coming out. So in that way, when we are talking about this integration, this has to primarily deal with the motion in the tank and not outside the tank, simply because the streamline proportion outside the tank is insignificant as compared to the streamline proportion inside the tank. So if that be the case, this is almost as good as dV1 dt. So you can say that why V1? If you consider this parallel nature of the streamlines, from 1 to at least this very bottom part of the streamline, the area of cross section of the tank, it is it's the same, and for continuity of flow, because the area is not changing, the velocity will also not change. So for almost throughout the height of the tank, it will be like V1, so dV1 dt, and ds will be just like minus dz, because it is the vertical portion of the tank where we are doing. So because the velocity is V1 is not a function of z, it is just same uniform velocity. So we take it out of the integration. So it becomes dV1 dt times this one minus h. Right? So in that way, actually, I mean, I have so ds will be I mean, from 1 to 2, if you say, it will be in the negative z direction, but you can all sum it up with minus h, because this is simply along the streamline. If you are moving, the rate of change of velocity with respect to times with respect to time times the change in the streamline coordinate, which is the change in the z coordinate, and which is actually integral of this entire thing. And this integral of entire thing is from 1 to 2, it is simply minus h. So in that way, this actually gives you the equation, but that's not all. I mean, this doesn't give us anything to solve the problem. We have to put in significantly more insights. First of all, see the problem. 1 and 2 are both atmospheric condition, right? There is atmosphere at the top of the tank, it's a free surface, and exit also atmosphere. So P2 is equal to P1, both are atmospheric. Okay. Z2 minus Z1, we have just now seen, is minus H. Then so in fact, here in the integral, you can write plus dz, you have to just keep in mind that you are moving along the streamline. So when you are integrating from a high value of z to a low value of z, and that is how minus h will automatically come. Now v2 square minus v1 square. So this is we have seen the consideration of this conservation of mass or continuity, and we can apply it here. So let us use this color, maybe continuity or conservation of mass. So that is simply like A1 V1 equal to A2 V2. We have discussed about that in the class very elaborately. So pi d square by 4 into V1, right, is equal to pi small d square by 4 into V2. So I'm not sort of putting up anything that at this stage that small d is much less than capital D. Let us keep it as it is and see how it evolves as a part of the solution, rather than putting it here. See, putting it here is a very illegitimate way of looking into this, is because if you put it here, that is neglect small d, you will get like this, put it 0, you cannot use this equation. And in fact, you cannot put it 0 because this is about the rate of flow, and the velocities may be small, the diameters may be at some places small, but rate of flow is not small. Otherwise, the tank will, or it cannot be approximated as 0. Otherwise, the tank will never drain to empty. So in that way, we can just simply write, say V2 is V1 into d small d by capital D square, right? That much we can write. So the objective of writing that is that now we will write V2 in terms of V1. So V1 square into 1 minus, other way, V1 square into d small d by capital D square minus 1, right? This by 2. We have only one more step to solve this problem, and see the answer is mixed with V1 and H, but we know a straightforward relationship between V1 and H, and that relationship is V1 is minus dH dt. So let us write it somewhere. So V1 is minus dH dt. So we will faithfully substitute that in this equation. So it will be, yes?
Sir, it will be d by d to the power 4.
What d by d to the power 4?
Sir, in the last equation that you wrote, because we are taking V1 square.
Yes, you are correct. Very good. Yes. Absolutely. Thank you. So now we will write V1 square by 2 as dH dt square. V1 is minus dH dt, so dH dt square by 2 into d by d square, 4 minus 1 minus GH minus, so V1 is minus dH dt, so plus H into dV dt is d2H dt2. So this is it. So you get a differential equation. So let us write the form of the differential equation instead of just sort of writing it as a whole. So you have some k into dh dt whole square, where what is this k? Let me write it somewhere. So half into d by d whole to the power 4 minus 1 plus h into d2h dt2 minus gh equal to 0. So this is the governing equation which will give you h as a function of time if you solve it. And it's a well posed problem, because at time equal to 0 you have h is equal to maybe h naught, and you can set a dh dt also. So maybe it was stagnant to begin with, and then only say this hole was closed, so it was stagnant, and suddenly the hole was opened, so it started flowing. So you see the complexity of the problem. It is not a very straightforward differential equation, and even very trained mathematics students will not be able to solve it, just as once. You can, make certain simplifications. And what are those simplifications? The simplifications could be, for example, one very straightforward simplification is this one. That is, this is much greater than 1. So your value of k becomes simpler, and then you can compare these two terms. This I leave on you as an exercise to see which one is more and which one is less. And that is the key. Why that is the key? Because this is the term, this is the one that followed from the unsteady component of the Bernoulli's equation. So if somehow there are instances when this term is not important, you are likely to get a solution which you obtained in your junior classes. But if this term is important, you will get a solution deviated from what you got from your junior classes. So this I give you as a comprehensive homework to write a detailed report on this very simple tank emptying problem. The title of the report will be Tank Emptying Revisited. Okay. I'm just giving this to you with a purpose. So this is a real problem where you have a tank and you have a hole and water is being drained. What answer you are getting, you can check very easily whether the answer is close to the reality or not by putting up this problem in one of the, say, commercial CFD softwares, say ANSYS or something, with which you may be familiar. If not, you can, these are certain things which you can learn as academic hobby. So you can learn to use one of the either open source or commercial softwares, and this problem is actually very easy to solve. It's a free surface problem, so you have to use a free surface tracking method. There are methods like volume of fluid method, etc. So you can just click on button there. You don't have to really understand what it is, but you can solve the problem. So you can solve the problem using a CFD software and see the velocity characteristics and how much time it requires to empty the tank. That is the sort of a very rigorous approach. This is not nearly as rigorous as a CFD work, because it doesn't require any specialized computation. So the second, the one rigorous approach is CFD. The second approach is little bit less rigorous, that is solving this differential equation. what you can do is that you can solve this using MATLAB. If you are not familiar, see, these are the ways in which you can learn different tools. So if you know how to use MATLAB, so there are of course directly the ODE toolboxes which you can use. Otherwise, if you are interested to write a bit of your own coding, so this is a second order equation which can be converted into two first order initial value problems, and that can be solved by a method called as Runge-Kutta method. So RK method, which in numerical analysis you may have studied in some level. So the MATLAB has some inbuilt functions to solve this type of equation in Runge-Kutta method. I mean, some of the inbuilt functions I can remember, ODE23, ODE45, like that. If you see this helps in MATLAB, you can see how to write a code for solving this. Otherwise, with the present ODE toolbox in MATLAB, or even any other COMSOL multiphysics, you will straight away be able to solve this equation numerically, of course, not analytically, by putting the some numerical values of k, g, etc. So you can solve this and find out the characteristic and how much time it takes. And the third approach is the junior class approach, for which the solution is just one liner or two liner. Now you compare between these and try to put up a very critical picture of the limits of sort of applicability of each of these types of solutions, and comprehensively that can be put up as a very thoughtful discussion on the tank emptying problem. You can prepare a report and share with me, and the best report that I will get, I mean, if it is of at least a threshold quality, I plan to sort of communicate to one of the good journals in the fluid mechanics domain, and publish a paper with some of you who who is going to do this very meticulously. I hope you have understood the problem that I have told. So let us take a little break, about 5 minutes, and we'll continue with the rest of this chapter, which will take maybe another 15-20 minutes, and that we can do today itself. So let us take a break of about 5 minutes, and we'll continue after that. Okay, so let us continue. Let me just erase this. So we have so far used the Bernoulli's equation or similar equation for using rectangular coordinate system. So we will now see how to write the same equations in some curvilinear coordinate system. So Bernoulli's equation in streamline and cross streamline coordinate. So to understand the importance, so if you have a streamline like this and you use a coordinate system which is the streamwise coordinate S, and cross streamline maybe locally it is the normal to S. So if you use this coordinate system, then locally the flow is always one dimensional. It is of course a general three-dimensional flow, but locally it is one dimensional. So in that way analysis gets quite simplified. So to write this, what we will do, I mean it's a reasonably straightforward exercise. We will consider a fluid element which is like a control mass. This is coaxial with the streamline. So this is a fluid element coaxial with the streamline. So to make an analysis, we will try to identify all the forces which are acting on this. Let us say the pressure here is P. If the pressure here is P, and let us say this is ds. Differential is small. So if this is P, this will be P plus this one. Right? No higher order term will be important because ds is like limit as delta s tends to 0, then it becomes differentially small and all the higher order terms will go away. So this is just like a definition of gradient. Now, so why I started with pressure is because this is the force which is there in the Bernoulli's paradigm where there is no viscous effect. This is one of the very important forces. The other important force is of course the gravity force, and let us say as usual, let us say this is the z direction and gravity is acting like this. So if you take points 1 and 2 and maybe make a construction and say that the difference in height between 1 and 2, the points 1 and 2 are on the streamline. The difference in height is dz. So what you can write, I mean, if the streamline is making an angle, say theta with the horizontal, so you have the force, I mean the weight is mg. What is m? M is rho. Sorry. So this is mg, or you can say dmg. So what is this dm? I am just writing somewhere. Dm is the density times the volume. Volume is A into ds. Now if you write this in the streamwise direction, resultant force, its component will be equal to the sine theta, the cos theta component in the so this is G is vertically downward, so it will be the sine theta component along the S direction with a negative sign because it is in the negative S direction. So if we just write the Newton's second law, this is a identified fluid element, so we can write resultant force along S is the mass times acceleration along S. So resultant force along S, what is that? P into A minus this is the resultant force along S from the pressure. Then rho A ds into sine theta. Where from that this if I construct a triangle, let me just put up a color so that you will understand what triangle I am talking about. So this triangle. So from this shaded triangle, what you can clearly see is that sine theta is dz by ds. That we will substitute in the next step, but just we have marked it. This is equal to the mass rho a ds into acceleration. So recall the expression for acceleration in the kinematics chapter. So one is the unsteady component, another here the convective component, or the temporal the velocity variation with space. And you can see that this the convective component of acceleration only it is like one dimensional. There are three terms in the three-dimensional thing for the Cartesian expression for acceleration. Here only one term, because as I explained that it is like a locally one-dimensional flow. So you can write here, and first of all you can cancel certain things. A is the thing that you can cancel from all the terms. So you can write minus this one. So there is a G here which I missed, minus rho G, and sine theta if you substitute. ds also you can cancel from all the terms. So this is the corresponding equation what we talk about for the S direction. For the N direction, very similar. You can see two coordinates S and N. So let us write it for the N direction. Let me just erase some parts so that I can write. For the N direction, so you have an acceleration along N. See, the fluid is moving, or the velocity is in the tangential direction. But will you have any acceleration along N? See, there is no velocity along N, but there will be acceleration along N. Why? Because the continuous change of direction, because of the curvature of the streamline, will give you an normal component of acceleration, which is minus v square by the radius of curvature of the streamline. So this is a very, very important thing. This is just like particle mechanics. So if you have a curved path, so there will be an acceleration which is because of the curvature of the path. And this is exactly the same thing. There's absolutely no difference. And it is a centripetal one, so it is towards the center and towards the inner side. That is why minus. And r is the local radius of curvature of the streamline. It's local; it changes everywhere. So let us try to work out a problem to sort of close this, so that we get clarity of how to make use of these equations. So not solve the problem fully, but to an extent that you will be able to complete the calculations. So the problem. So consider the velocity field this is a two-dimensional velocity field. So from this, find the radius of curvature of the streamline of a streamline at a given point, say 1, 3. So let us solve this problem very meticulously. Apparently simple problem, but if you do not solve it meticulously, you will get lost. So imagine that you have a streamline like this, which has local S and local N. These are called as streamwise and cross streamwise coordinates. So how do you know what is the unit vector along the streamline? So unit vector along the streamline, because see, the challenge here is that from say NS system, we have to map it to IJ system, the Cartesian system, and that is what we are trying to do. So the unit vector is any vector in that direction, which is the velocity always, divided by the magnitude of velocity, and that is very easy to do. So you have this ax square I minus 2a xyj divided by the magnitude is root over this ax square square plus 2axy square. So it will be some I plus some j. Now what is the acceleration? Acceleration along x. So this is u and this is v. The acceleration along x is so this will be 0, this will be 0, but you will get some expression. Acceleration along y. P is also not function of time, that is 0. So this will be something. So the acceleration vector in terms of the Cartesian system, it will be axi. I am just giving the outline so that you can put the calculation. Outline is the method is more important. So acceleration along S and acceleration along N. Which one will be useful to calculate the radius of curvature? Definitely acceleration along N. So acceleration along S we can readily find out because we have found out unit vector along S. So or in terms of scalar variable, so acceleration component along S. So what is that? Acceleration component is the total acceleration dot with the unit vector in the direction of S. So that is the acceleration along S. It will be some expression. So what will be acceleration along N? It will be, I mean, this is actually not required. I'm just writing it. But what will be required is acceleration along N. So for that, you will require the unit vector along N. How will you calculate the unit vector along N? So very, very interesting. See like this. Just think in this way as if S is X and N is Y. Then the unit vector, let us say J, and say this is I, and unit vector along Z. See, Z direction is same for even this because Z is perpendicular to the plane. So we know that J is equal to K cross I, right? Here instead of J it will be En. K will be K because that is perpendicular to the plane cross ES. So you already have ES, make a cross product of that with K and you will get what is En. The logic of getting or the reason of getting En is that once you know En, you can get now the acceleration component along N. What is that? This is acceleration vector dot with unit vector along N. So you get it because you get an expression for this in terms of I and J, and acceleration vector also you get in terms of I and J. That just make a dot product. So you get An, and magnitude of An is simply V square by R, where R is the curvature of the streamline. From here you can find out what is the value of R locally by substituting x, y as 1, 3. So see, I mean it's not a very difficult problem, no doubt about it, but it's not such a trivial, straightforward as well. Anyway, we have run out of time, so we will stop. In fact, this is the end of this chapter. We will start with a fresh chapter on integral forms of conservation equation in subsequent class. I just want to make a note that this Thursday I am not going to take any class. So Thursday no class. Next class will be on again coming Monday. So just please make a note of this so that Thursday we are not going to meet. So Monday what we will do is that before possibly starting the class, if any of you have any doubt on whatever we have learnt about inviscid flow, at least you have realized that Bernoulli's equation is not that kind of a straightforward thing like orifice meter, Venturi meter problem that you may have got accustomed through your undergraduate coursework. So let us close it today, and we will meet again on the coming Monday. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.